Culligan man. Look at that.
It was obvious that her new home had a water problem.
Bummer.
So, I checked it out.
Well, you're the expert. What now, Culligan man?
Then I installed the right Culligan system, and it solved her problem.
Hey, Culligan man, look at this!
She was always going against common sense. Something as important as a birthday cake. Crystal sugar, I told her. Use something else. There's no telling what might happen. Crystal sugar. Don't take chances.
Channel 5 wants you to see the Icecapades, presented by Legs Sheer Energy at Veterans Memorial Auditorium, November 27th through December 1st. Stop by any participating Legs retailer to save $3 off on selected performances with proof of purchase from Legs Sheer Energy pantyhose or Lil Legs products. So be our guest for less with $3 off at the Icecapades presented by Legs Sheer Energy and Channel 5.
Well, Major, right on time. I like that.
Sir, my mission of mercy has been accomplished. Should you decide to assign me this task again, I would like 3 days' notice so that I'll have time to desert.
Couldn't have been too big a pain in the hiney. You got money from everyone. Oh, come to think of it, except me. I want to kick in my fair share. Wait a minute. My name's checked off, too. What's going on here? I didn't give you any money.
Trying to raise money around here is like trying to raise the Titanic with tweezers. So I paid for everybody. However, I will take you $10. I could use the loan till payday. Sure.
Coming up on the next First Report, Central Iowa gets a light blanket of snow. We'll let you know about cancellations, delays, and everything else you need to know before you head out Thursday morning at 6 o'clock.
Crimes against women. Special reports on Channel 5 News.
From across the country, an Election Day message to politicians, both Democrats and Republicans.
They're all the same. Democrats, Republicans, when they get to Congress, they forget about the people.
I really don't see that they're doing much.
There are a lot of problems domestically which I think are being ignored.
The same problems we had 10 years ago, we still have today.
Well, this selfishness is actually ruthless.
There's a growing sentiment to throw the rascals out, which could spell trouble next year for George Bush. Tonight, we'll hear from the heartland why voters think that politicians just don't get it.
This is ABC News Nightline. Substituting for Ted Koppel and reporting from New York, Forrest Sawyer.
Through the dust from yesterday's explosion at the polls, we've been able to read a message etched on the wall to incumbent politicians from the voters. If you want to keep your jobs, you had better start listening, which is what we're going to do tonight. The president's in Rome, Congress is hunkered down, and the voters clearly have something to say. So tonight, no pontificating from high officials. Tonight, you will hear what's got America hopping mad. Mad enough to throw out incumbents, Democrat and Republican, from New Jersey to Mississippi. Consider these events. In Pennsylvania, a one-time college professor who had never run for office came galloping from far, far behind and trounced the former governor and U.S. Attorney General for the U.S. Senate seat. Harris Wofford's platform, The Republicans have been feeding the fat cats and forgetting where they came from.
If we can find hundreds of billions of dollars to bail out the S&L kingpins, we can find the will to help the decent, honest people who've been laid off in this Republican recession.
Harris Wofford won big as a populist liberal. In Mississippi, the new governor-elect is another non-politician who ran as a populist conservative. Curt Fordice's platform, the Democrats have been feeding the fat cats and forgetting where they came from.
I think what this wonderful victory is a mandate for change for the people of Mississippi.
Incumbents were out of season in New Jersey and Virginia as well, with losses for the Democratic strongholds there. President Bush acknowledged today the message is sinking in.
I mean, anything you do in this job, I've learned, you take on a little water, get a few hits. If things are going well, why, you know, people are smiling and cheering, and when they're not, you gotta try to redouble your efforts to help people.
The president flew to Rome today to attend a NATO conference, but he has risked offending Japan by canceling a long-planned trip there later this month. The criticism that he's been globetrotting and forgetting where he came from may be hitting close to home. We have assembled 4 key people across the country who have been watching these political changes and all this turmoil, and tonight they will tell us what they hear America saying and what it means for the coming presidential campaign. James Carville, you were there directing things for the Wofford campaign. What did you hear from the voters?
Well, you heard frustration. People are more afraid than they are angry. I think that they don't think that the government in Washington looks out after their interests. I think they looks out the interests of overseas, it looks out the interests of wealthy people, and to some extent looks out to the interests of the very poor. But the huge number of people in the middle class feel very frustrated about the way the government treats them and very concerned about the economic future of this country.
Verne Kennedy, you were doing polls for the Fordice campaign down in Mississippi. Now, you have to say that Wofford and Fordice are 2 very different animals, but are the voters feeling the same kinds of things, or is it different?
Yes, they are, Forrest. In Mississippi, the voters elected Curt Fordice because they believe the political system is broken. Voters can't change the system. All they can do is elect new leadership. The system's broken, get a new leader. Curt Fordice told him he would change it, and that's what I think he'll do.
Molly Ivins, columnist with Dallas Times Herald. Is this good news or bad news for the American political system?
I think it's good news. I think people are cynical, disgusted, and pissed off about politics, and I think that's a perfectly rational reaction. What I'm glad to see is that they're no longer apathetic.
Ronald Cedillos, you are the president of an aerospace firm, and you're a Republican fundraiser. You've been working in Republican politics for a long time. Is this bad news for all the incumbents who seem to be taking the ire so far?
Well, I think all the incumbents should be concerned with the level of participation that the American people are exerting now in the political scene. There's going to be a higher level of accountability for anybody holding public office now.
Exactly what are the American people upset about? What do they want to see changed? And what does that mean for the future? That's what we're going to be talking about when we come back.
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by Jeep Eagle.
Your Eagle Summit's roomy, but you used to carry all that in your Toyota Tercel.
But now I also have room for my boots.
Your boots?
Yep. Here, boots.
When are you going to get a sporty new Eagle Summit?
Hey, there are other cars to consider. How about Toyota Tercel? How about Nissan Sentra?
How about $500 cash back?
How about tomorrow?
Nighttime. One of the worst times for pain. Pain that's hard to face alone. That's why you need new Ultra Strength Bengay, with more pain relievers than we've ever had before. For muscle pain that's hard to ignore, minor arthritis pain, back pain, pain that seems worse at night. New Ultra Strength Bengay, with more pain relievers than ever. Deep, penetrating warmth for fast, long-lasting relief. You can say goodnight to your pain with new Ultra Strength Bengay.
Gifted Hands, the gallery on the park, downtown Ames.
Thursday, she got custody of the kids. He kidnapped them, hiding them in war-torn Yugoslavia. We go with her as she tries to get them back. Prime time.
Thursday.
What's the message from these remarkable elections that we have been witnessing? Mr. Carville, you told us just a moment ago that the people are very dissatisfied with what they're seeing with the political system. Let's dig just a little bit deeper now. Is this a kind of general dissatisfaction that is not expressed in any particular way, or are they aiming it at something?
I think they're frustrated, Forrest. I think you got personal income in this country is stagnant. I think they see economic growth is not growing. And they see Washington spending time on things that really don't matter to them. I think when they look at Congress, they spend a lot of time on the Gates nomination, or even the Thomas nomination, which, you know, captivated the country, but 2 days after it was over, it was gone, and they feel like they can't pay for health care. That two people are working, in danger of losing their jobs, the schools are not going anywhere, and there's just a sense of frustration, and to them it looks like the government doesn't pay attention to things that matter to them, and I think that's what you saw expressed. And if I know in terms of Senator Wofford, he expressed those concerns. I can't say about Governor-elect Fordice, but I suspect that's pretty much what happened down there also.
How about it, Mr. Kennedy? Is that right?
Yes, it is, but it's more than just what James is talking about in Mississippi. It's a matter that the system is encumbered to the point that the system can't operate. The system cannot do what the voters want it to do. Bad schools, unemployment, poor road system, last in terms of poverty and education, but nothing's happening. A lot of promises, and the voters are simply reacting and saying, if we can't change the system, we can change the leadership, and let's reach out and get someone who's not a career politician.
Wait a minute, let me see if I hear what you're saying. You're saying that the system itself is, in the minds of an awful lot of people, the thing that's broken. It doesn't mean just change the politicians. It means revamp the whole thing.
Absolutely. We're asking a number of questions around the country that say, how do we solve the problems? Do we bring more money in? Negative. Do we change the leadership? Maybe so. Or is the entire system broken to the point that it needs overhauling? We're finding more than 50% of voters in every state saying, overhaul the system. It's broken. But all I can do is elect new leaders. And what I think Curt Fordice's message was that he would overhaul the system.
Now, go ahead.
I don't know. I can't go in a senatorial election. I can't go to the system, but I think that they feel like the system that we have is not working for them, and the system that we have in terms of the president and Congress is not paying attention to things that matter to them. And I do think that the sort of wake-up call metaphor is appropriate here. And I think if the Republicans, in terms of the federal government, are going to go around and tell people who are working, whose income is being squeezed, that what this country really needs is a capital gains loophole for people making over $200,000 a year. I mean, I think that's insanity.
But Ms. Ivins, take a second to look at this. We've got these two completely different candidates. One a very conservative man, one a liberal, and it appears that they're both coming from the same place. Can that be possible?
Yes, it is to some extent. I think one of the commonest phenomena you see in American politics is misplaced anger. I do think that people understand the system's broke and it needs to be fixed. Who they get mad at, of course, is always subject to manipulation of campaign consultants and TV ads. Blame this person, blame that person. There's always some scapegoat. Congress blames the president blames Congress. People are sick of that, too. I do think the system's broke, but I think it's relatively easy to fix. Of course, I'm always optimistic to the point of idiocy. I think the first thing we need to do is fix the way campaigns are financed, and I realize that's not real high on a lot of people's list. They're a lot more concerned about the economy and health care and so on. But let me tell you something. The oldest saying in politics is you dance with them what brung you. And it doesn't matter whether we limit terms or throw all the rascals who are in out and replace them with new rascals. They're still going to be dancing with those what brung them. And that's big special interests in this country that have an undue amount of influence on the legislation passed in every state house and on Capitol Hill in Washington.
That's what you're hearing, Mr. Cedillos, from an awful lot of people, is that it's the fat cats. You can hear it from the left, you hear it from the right. It's those guys who've got money who are running us into the ground, and we're back here trying to do the best that we can. And you in Washington have done this to us, and you in Washington are not listening to us, and by golly, you're going to listen to us this time. Is it that strong?
Well, Forrest, I can speak at least out here in California. What we're hearing from the political pundits that that there's going to be a tax break for the fat cats or the rich. That's precisely the sort of rhetoric that the average working fellow out here is fed up with. Most people in California, at least, understand that over 95% of all the employment comes from independent businesses here in California, and close to that amount across the country. What that means is that if entrepreneurs are not rewarded for growing their companies, providing jobs, providing income, which in turn pays taxes, provides revenue for the state and federal government, that then allows for a healthy state or federal government to operate. They're forgetting the critical link there of a growing economy and a business-friendly environment, both at the state and federal level.
Yeah, but I think there still is a problem beyond that. Look, any major state senator is in office for 6 years has to raise $5,000 a week in order to get reelected. Now, he's not raising $5,000 from small businessmen in Bubba. He's raising $5,000 from a bunch of big corporate special interest political action committees.
I think Molly's right, but the problem with that is there's only one solution, and that's public financing, and the voters don't want that. And you're going to be asking politicians to do something that's tough for them to do, and that's to pass something that the voters don't. And every time people that want public finance and pass it, the Republicans come up and say we're just going to throw money at politicians, and it's an argument that the public buys. I think people in the system understand that public finance would be good, but it's a pretty hard thing to carry out, a message to carry in a campaign, and it's a pretty tough vote to defend.
Well, again,
hold on a second, Mr. Kennedy. I think one of the things that I'm hearing Mr. Cedillos say is that there is a danger in this anger, that maybe it'll stir some change, but at the same time it could get carried away. And the system could start ratcheting off into places that a lot of people could be scared about.
Forrest, that was an inaccurate statement. Federal campaign laws regulate that a maximum of $1,000 per person per election cycle can be contributed. So the statement that $5,000 tickets are being sold is just isn't so.
I didn't make that statement.
All right. Well, thank you for the correction, Mr. Kennedy. The question stands to you.
In Mississippi, Curt Fordice introduced himself at every campaign rally as a businessman. But I think one of the things that we've missed in Mississippi is that Ray Mabus outspent Curt Fordice 6-1. Much higher intensity message, but look what happened there. In Mississippi, businesses are not the problem. Curt Fordice was elected because he was a businessman and wanted to bring business interest.
All right, look, let me make my point a little more clear. In Louisiana, you have David Duke running for governor, and David Duke is a former member of the Ku Klux Klan, in fact, a former Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. A lot of people are worried about that, including the President of the United States. And there is a feeling on the part of some people who are watching that campaign that there can be a kind of demagoguery that can enter into this, and that there may have been, some people have claimed, even a kind of demagoguery that's entered into the Fordice campaign.
Well, sure, that's one of the oldest dogs that still hunts. It's a classic in Southern politics. When things go wrong, you blame Mr. Black. I mean, that's a very, very old standard appeal.
That's not just Southern politics, Molly.
Yeah, but
well, that's right.
Yeah, that's all over, you know.
It works almost everywhere. And that's, again, though, I'm listening to John Sununu the morning after David Duke make it into the runoff, said, well, there ought to be a line on that ballot where folks could vote no. They did vote no when they voted for David Duke. That's exactly what they were doing. That's as far from establishment politics as you can get.
And were you hunting that dog as well, Mr. Kennedy, or was
No, not at all.
campaign?
In fact, the Fordice campaign, I've heard a lot of similarities drawn between that and David Duke, and we're doing a great deal of polling in Louisiana now. But they're two different campaigns. Race was not an issue in Mississippi.
Is that right, Ms. Ivins?
As I understand it, a far more important issue was that Ray Mabus hadn't kept any promises he made when he first ran.
Absolutely. He talked about Mississippi never being last again. And what happened, that didn't change.
That's right. The black voters who supported him heavily the first time he ran just didn't bother much to turn out.
Mr. Carville, you know how these campaigns work out.
Right.
Is race an issue in many of them? Is race going to be an issue down the road?
It sure is an issue in Louisiana. I mean, I think that we can talk about tapping into voter resentment and a lot of things like that, and I'm sure some of that's at work in Duke's success, but I think a large part of his success is old-fashioned bigotry. And as a Louisianan, it pains me to say it, but I think that's one of the dynamics that's at work there, and I don't think it's a real subtle thing.
Let's pause for just a moment. Let's look ahead at what the message is that's being sent by these elections and see what it means for 1992 when we come back.
this royal throne of kings, this happy breed of men, this earth of majesty, this little world.
The airline that's uniting the world, United, brings you non-stop service from 6 U.S. cities to London's Heathrow and the land of poets.
This blessed plot, this earth, this realm, this England.
Come fly the friendly skies.
Plastic pickles sure taste good, huh?
Mm-hmm.
You gonna eat yours?
Yeah, sure.
I really like plastic pickles, Dad.
I like them too, then. Katie, do you want my pickle?
No, not if you're gonna eat it.
Not if, oh, okay.
Dad, when are you gonna eat that pickle?
When am I gonna eat this pickle right here?
Thanks, Dad.
And remember to look for plastic olives, too.
You asked for it. Backed by popular demand at Terry Krantz Crossroads in Fort Dodge. Push it, pull, and drag it celebration. Push, pull, drag it into Terry Krantz Crossroads and get $2,000 guaranteed minimum trade-in on selected new 92s and quality used cars, trucks, and vans. Our biggest inventory ever. Ford, Chevrolets, Toyotas, Pontiacs, Olds, Cadillacs, and more. We don't care if you push it, pull it, drag it in. It's worth $2,000 whatever you're driving. Well, just about. The offer is limited. Hurry for your best selection. Call 1-800-433-IOWA. Or better yet, come on down today for Terry Krantz Crossroads. Guaranteed $2,000 minimum trade-in. You asked for it.
Thursday, 3 powerhouse women of Washington. One of them broke the Anita Hill story. Politicians fear them. Nobody wants to mess with them. Prime time.
Thursday.
The amazing planet Earth. Tomorrow, explore a world unto itself, the mysteries of a cloud forest.
Then can we talk? Joan Rivers here on Good Morning America tomorrow.
We've talked a little about what the people think is wrong. Let's talk about what they seem to be saying they would like to have happen. Mr. Cedillos, in Pennsylvania, Harris Wofford ran on the idea of a national health care system. In other places, we're hearing that people would like less government, less taxes, something along those lines. How do you marry those two? Are they sending disparate messages?
Well, you can't have increased social programs without paying for it. The money has to come from someplace. So if you have additional programs, there's going to be additional taxes. An answer to that would be what I am hearing in California and what other business people are telling me here on the West Coast is what they want is economic stability and indeed economic prosperity. And that overregulation, excessive taxes on placed on business and personal income, which will thwart the growth of their companies and their industries. That's what's going to block the revenue that will go into the state and federal treasuries that will pay for these programs that everybody seems to clamor for.
Help me out here, Mr. Carville. Are we getting mixed messages out of this?
No, I don't think we're getting any mixed messages. I think people understand if you go to national health insurance, the government could save, according to Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, $241 billion a year. Richard Dorman says that 13% of the GNP being spent on medical cost is unbearable in this economy. I think people want change, but what I think people want, they don't mind government programs, but they want government programs that work for all people and work for middle-income people. I never heard anybody brag about complain about a tax break for the wealthy. Oh, that's fine. Or you have a program that just benefits the poor, then okay, that's fine. But I think when people want national health insurance it's a program that's going to benefit people across the board, and it's going to save this country a tremendous amount of money. And Senator Wofford was able to tap into that vein and tell people it's time that the government do something for you. They do something for everybody else. They give tax breaks to corporations. They run around the world doing something for these folks, and it's time to take care of our own. And I think that's the salient message out there.
You know, Ms. Ivins, I know that some people were saying that if Dick Thornburg, who was the former U.S. Attorney General running against Mr. Wofford, if he had said what he's talking about is socialized medicine and what he's going to do is dip his hand into your pockets, then he would have had a little better chance. Is that right?
Well, perhaps that's true, although frankly I think people are keeping their eyes on the prize a lot more than they have in the past. I don't think they're interested in all these hot-button issues about who loves the flag more and whether who and so approves of gay lifestyles. I mean, the question is, who's getting screwed over and who's doing the screwing? And I think people are really keeping their eyes on that these days. I think there is a real understanding that the system is not fair.
I can't be as colorful as Molly, but Forrest, but I think that what people, I think to some extent what she's saying is right, but I think that people think if you work, you pay the taxes, and you fight the wars, the system at best doesn't care about you. At worst, it's working against you.
Mr. Kennedy, what does that mean as we look ahead now? We start pointing toward 92. Obviously, politicians are going to be looking at the tea leaves to try to figure this out. What are they going to find?
Well, obviously, they'd be looking because the voters are terribly frustrated. And I think the voters are looking at the politicians who have basically said, I make things work for me, but not necessarily for you. That's what we saw in Mississippi. I think we're seeing that elsewhere. I think every politician needs to be able to stand back, and if he's running for re-election, to say, here's what I've done for you. Here's how I have been responsive, and here's how I've made government work for you. And so you don't have this kind of disenchantment, disenfranchisement that we're seeing around where people are saying education isn't working, we're putting enough money into it, make it work and make it work for me.
But you remember that the last presidential campaign, and Ms. Ivins was referring to that, we had people wrapping themselves in flags and doing photo opportunities and talking about who's more patriotic and who's not. Are we through with that?
Yeah, I think we are. In Mississippi, one of the things that we saw with Curt Fordice is very straight talk. He's a two-fisted guy who looks in your eye, tells you how things are, and Mississippians like that. We saw a groundswell from rural white vote that typically does not vote Republican.
Mr. Cedillos, does it matter if you're a Republican or you're a Democrat these days? Is that important?
Well, an interesting thing that's happening out here is that even labor is shifting over to the Republican Party. We just had a recent experience where the United Aerospace Workers honored Governor Pete Wilson, who, as you know, is a Republican. And they did it because Pete Wilson has been one of the very few people who has been exerting leadership on jobs. What people care about today are jobs, being able to pay their mortgage and send their kids to school. The social problems that are social issues that people are bringing up are really taking a second seat or a back seat to economic stability. And I keep saying that, but I cannot tell you or be emphatic enough on how important that is out here in California. And anybody looking at a national office has got to understand the electoral votes that are out here in California, and they are directly tied to economic prosperity. I think Mr. Carville was being a little modest when he was talking about his recent win. I'm not quite so sure that it was tied as tightly to this referendum that he was speaking about as it was to his own skills on being a political consultant. I think he just...
All right, let me ask that. Mr. Carville, jump in here. We got a little bit of time left. Let's talk about President Bush. Now, Mr. Wofford said what we're talking about is a message that's going to Congress and the President. The President's going, well, really, it's mostly to Congress. Is he going to be able to duck this one?
I think, as a Democrat, I hope the President keeps telling everybody everything is fine. I really don't need a message. I don't need a wake-up call. Everything in this country is fine. That's ludicrous, and I can't believe that the President doesn't understand that. But at any rate, what Senator Wofford, I think, the way I...
Just 10 seconds.
The way I feel it is a message to all of Washington. The President is the first citizen of Washington. The alarm clock went off in his bedroom loudest, but it went off in a lot of other bedrooms, too.
I have a feeling we'll be talking to all of you as this campaign season moves along. It's been a fascinating night. Thank you. I'll be back in a moment.
Channel 5.
When you're the person who doctors the family, you're on call day and night. And since coughs can be extra annoying at night, that's a good time to doctor that cough with Robitussin. Because more doctors and pharmacists recommend Robitussin than any other cough medicine. Robitussin, recommended by more doctors, pharmacists, and Dr. Mom.
Right now, America's most popular brand of appliances is on sale at Sears Brand Central. What are you doing? Where this 21 cubic foot Kenmore top mount and 22 cubic foot Kenmore side by side are at their lowest prices ever.
Introducing Glade Plug-ins Potpourri.
Plug it in the fresh in the air. Plug it in the fresh in everywhere.
Plug into freshness with Glade Plug-ins, now in Potpourri.
Plug it in, plug it in.
How do you improve a design like Ford Taurus? With no negatives, you simply accentuate the positives. Aerodynamic design becomes slipperier. Instrumentation and controls become handier. An inviting interior becomes friendlier. And in the end, the most award-winning car in its class becomes even classier. The new Ford Taurus. Have you ever wished the good things in life could get even better? Have you driven a Ford lately?
Channel 5 wants you to see the Icecapades, presented by Legs Sheer Energy at Veterans Memorial Auditorium, November 27th through December 1st. Stop by any participating Legs retailer to save $3 off on selected performances with proof of purchase from Legs Sheer Energy Pantyhose or Lil Legs products. So be our guest for less with $3 off at the Icecapades presented by Legs Sheer Energy and Channel 5.
One program note tomorrow on Primetime Live, a report on a woman fighting to get her children back from her ex-husband who kidnapped them and fled to a war-torn country. But that is our report for tonight. I'm Forrest Sawyer in New York. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
This has been Nightline. If you wish a videocassette version of Nightline, the cost is $14.98 plus $3.95 shipping and handling. If you wish a printed transcript of this or any Nightline broadcast, please send $4 to Journal Graphics, 1535 Grant Street, Denver, Colorado, 80203.
Nightline is a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source.
America's watching ABC.
And cold overnight with a low 0 to 5 above.
You and me together.